Chapter 22. Visions of his mother and father raced through Kevin's mind. He knew they would be mad at him for getting lost at the airport. He knew they'd probably yell and Buzz would make his life miserable. But he would give anything to be with them again. Harry raised the gun toward Kevin. Kevin shook. It didn't look like his wish was going to be granted. Behind Harry and Marv, a figure appeared in the shadows and moved slowly toward them. Kevin caught it in the corner of his eye. Pigeons began flocking by the dozens into the tree branches. They came from all directions, their wings fluttering loudly. Marv looked up. "Harry," he said. "Shut up," Harry barked. The figure moved closer, unseen by the two men. Marv was getting nervous. The birds bothered him. The birds and something else. He couldn't figure out what. "Let's get out of here," he said. "Something's wrong." "I said shut up!" Harry glared at Kevin, his eyes like lasers. "I didn't get past the 6th grade. Looks like you won't either." Click. Harry cocked the gun. Kevin closed his eyes and swallowed hard. "Let him go!" The voice was soft and creaky, but it cut through the silence like a shout. Harry and Marv spun around. The figure stepped out of the shadows. Her clothes were rags. Her face was craggy and covered with filth, but her eyes burned with fierce determination. In her right hand, she held a bucket. Before Harry or Marv could say a word, she threw it toward them. They cringed in surprise. Harry released Kevin. Birdseed pelted the two men like a thick hailstorm. It stuck to the varnish, coating them from head to toe. Reeling backward, they coughed and spat. Kevin looked upward. In unison, the pigeons spread their wings. Feeding time! They swooped downward, filling the sky, blocking the streetlight. Harry and Marv peered through the sticky seed on their faces. They gasped in horror. The birds converged on them, covering both men in a blanket of feathers, beaks, and claws. Harry and Marv fell to the ground, flailing helplessly. In the distance, Kevin heard the faint screaming of police sirens. He scooped up his backpack and took out the flare and matches. Then he raced out of the park entrance and set up the flare in the road. That would tip off the police, just as he had planned. He wished he could stay there, but it was too risky. After all, he was a fugitive too. As the sirens got louder, Kevin scampered back into the park. He ran behind a boulder and hid. Maybe he couldn't show his face, but at least he could have the satisfaction of watching. In all the rush and confusion, Kevin didn't notice the Pigeon Lady shuffling back into the shadows. With a screech of brakes, 2 squad cars raced into the park. They fishtailed to a stop right behind the flare. Kevin peered through a crack in the rock. He saw 4 cops jumping out of the cars. He watched them pull out their guns and walk toward the boulder. And he watched the identical look of amazement come over their faces. Harry and Marv were on their feet now. Their arms and legs jerked in desperate dance as they tried to shake off the birds. But the pigeons clung to them, ignoring their screams, pecking furiously at the seed. Dumbfounded, the cops just stared. No one seemed to know how to handle this. Finally, one of them took out his revolver and pointed it to the sky. Pow! The shot resounded, echoing off the nearby buildings. In a frightened flurry, the pigeons flew away. They disappeared quickly into the distance like a receding rain cloud. Harry and Marv turned to face the police. Kevin could hardly recognize them. Gray and white feathers stuck to their full-body coat of varnish, making them look like a bizarre species of giant bird. Among the feathers were clots of birdseed and big white splotches of pigeon poo. Meekly, they put their hands over their heads. A few gray and white feathers floated gently to the ground. One of the policemen picked up Harry's gym bag and unzipped it. He looked inside at the money, the cassette, and the photos. "I guess these are the guys," he said, looking at the photos. "Arrest them." 2 of the other cops approached Harry and Marv with handcuffs. "All right, fellas," one of them said. "On the ground, hands behind ya." The 2 crooks obeyed without a word. As one cop cuffed them, the other recited their rights. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be... can't... I'm sorry, I'm so used to Law and Order. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to retain a lawyer." Behind the boulder, Kevin was ecstatic. "This is great," he whispered. Operation Ho 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 was a success. Harry and Marv were heading back to jail. The cops had the money, and they knew where it came from. Mr. Duncan would be making his trip to the Children's Hospital tomorrow. Kevin had done his good deed. Considering he was on the lam in a strange city in the wee hours of Christmas morning, Kevin felt pretty good. It was time to move on. The last thing he needed was to be thrown in jail with the Birdmen. He ducked right behind the rock and slipped away into the night. Hiding behind the gnarled trunk of a tree, the Pigeon Lady watched him. Her eyes followed his movement until he was swallowed up by the shadows. Casting her side eyes downward, she walked away. Chapter 23. Harry and Marv left a trail of feathers and seed as they were escorted to the squad car. Harry was blind with anger. His money, his new life, his freedom, it was all gone. And because of that snotty kid. No, it wasn't the kid. He and Marv had escaped the booby trap. They had outfoxed the little creep. If it weren't for that, could it have been? It was like a fairy tale. Some ragtag fairy godmother waltzes out of nowhere and saves the kid's miserable life. And now he and Marv were going to prison. For the rest of their lives, they'd be talking to half-wits, eating terrible food, sleeping on scratchy mattresses, all because of birdseed. For the first time in his life, Harry wanted to cry. "You guys should have started a little earlier," cracked one of the officers. "The prisoners already exchanged gifts." "Well," Marv explained, "we had to hide out until the Harry need him." "Why don't you shut up, Marv? Didn't the guy just say we got the right to remain silent?" The officer shoved Harry into the back seat. "He's a little cranky," Marv said. "You see, we just broke out of jail a few days ago." The officer pushed Marv in too. He slammed the door, leaving the two crooks in the piles of goop. As the officers drove to the precinct house, he looked back through the rearview mirror and watched Harry and Marv all the way. He wondered how on earth he'd ever get the back seat clean again. I always thought that myself. Asleep in a plush, comfortable armchair, Peter McAllister snored softly. His wife sat by the hotel room window. It was the first time she'd sat since they got to the plaza. Outside, bells tinkled and Christmas lights blinked gaily, but she noticed none of it. Somewhere out there in that vast city, her son was wandering, lost. That is, if he wasn't. She grabbed a magazine. She needed something to distract the awful thoughts that were tumbling around in her head. Absent-mindedly, she flipped through the pages. There were mostly articles about New York, an interview about a local newswoman, restaurant advice, play reviews, a picture of the tree at Rockefeller Center. She flipped a couple more pages, then stopped. Quickly, she turned back to the tree. "World's largest Christmas tree," the caption said. It was stunning, decorated with thousands of tiny lights and a giant star on top. She stared and stared at it. She realized it was the one thing that had caught her attention. That must mean something, she thought. She just wasn't sure what. I'm going to go ahead and stop there, and please join me for our next reading.